I am calling the District 3 Advisory Board meeting to order for August 7th, 2019. We are at the Water Center at 101 East Pawnee. Welcome everybody that came. I appreciate it. And welcome to everybody that's online or that will see this later. Thank you for joining us. We have no staff reports tonight from the fire department or community policing, but before I get to that, has everybody had a chance to see the agenda? Are there any additions or corrections that need to be made to the agenda? And is there a motion that needs to be made? We have a motion and a second. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Minutes. Everybody's had a chance to see the minutes of last month's meeting.
Second.
Wow. Let the chair run the meeting, please. As we're following the rules, we have a motion and a second. That's great. Are there any additions or corrections anybody would like to make?
No, we've got June and July.
We can approve them together. Yeah, we can approve both together. Unless anybody has corrections or additions that need to be made to either, then we'll separate them out. If seeing none, I guess we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Now, no fire department or community policing reports this month. Stay tuned next month for those. No scheduled public items this month. Any off-agenda items? Anything that the public would like to say, or District Advisory Board members would like to say? Oh, well, we will then. We'll come back. Anything that anybody would like to say, we will give you 3 minutes. Yes, Bruce?
Simply, I love the new lines on I-135.
Well, that is something that normally a normal politician would take credit for when they didn't do anything about it. But no, I didn't have anything to do with that. So call your state representative and thank them for this. A matter of fact, I think Senator Peterson is on a transportation committee. You can call him up and thank him.
I think he's the chair.
So, so on behalf of him, you're welcome.
Well said.
Okay, we have, we're going to go back because we do have our fire department here. They have shown up, and Maddie, I can't see this, but I'm going to turn it so we can see them. Hello, fire department. Come on up. Come on up. Oh, right here's fine. Yeah, you bet.
State your name for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Don't forget you're on live feed. Oh, okay. My name is Mark Doing from Wichita Fire Department, Firehouse, Station 22 on B shift. This is
Our administrator.
Thanks for being here, guys.
we're on engine 22, so this is our answering area. We get a call in District 3. More than likely, we'll be the ones that show up, especially on B shift. So today, we got the information online as far as the types or the amount of arms that we've made from July. This is our July report. On fire alarms, we made 28 fire alarms just in our general area, District 3. We also made 586 medical alarms. And we had our total alarms risk at 712 alarms because we had 58 service alarms, or 90 service alarms, I'm sorry. We had a significant fire on July 26th of this year. 1403 East Mount Vernon, and it was a pretty decent fire. It ended up causing loss of home, and it was a shared, kind of like a duplex. The fire started, we believe, in the kitchen area towards the, burn up the kitchen area, and it also extended into the garage area. From what we were told, it was units arrived on the scene, heavy smoke. I don't recall of any fire being seen at that particular time. It was real heavy, dense smoke. En route, the crews were advised that there was possibly someone still trapped in the home. Other guys made an aggressive fire attack, put the water on the fire, and rushed to get inside to try to rescue any occupants. It was later determined that there was no one in the home, so everyone got out safely. No injury to our personnel, and no injury to the occupants of the home. We ended up finding out that the estimated loss to this home was around $80,000. So it was, like I said, it was a significant fire. I must add to, in case I forgot, en route, they were advised that the occupants were possibly in the basement. So the officer on engine 22, he conducted a 360, which means that they do a complete walk around to see if they can identify any additional problems that we may have by trying to put the fire out. They did the 360 and noticed that it was real clear in the basement. Like I said, fire attack was initiated, and they were able to get in there and put that fire out. No fire was, went down into the basement. It all stayed upstairs. So quick action on those guys pretty much kept the building from just caving in. So outside of the loss of the home, there was a dog that a family pet that ended up perishing in that fire. So weren't able to save the dog. So outside of that, if you guys have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Anybody from our district advisory board have a question? Okay.
I have not, at least on this report, it doesn't show a cause. So I don't have a cause, and they're probably still trying to determine what the cause was. Like I said, they had heavy fire inside the home. What they were able to tell was that the fire started kind of like in the kitchen area, back around. There's an exterior door back there as well. So the main body of that fire was in that area.
Right. Go ahead, Richard.
Where's 22 at?
Station 22 is over there off of Hydraulic and close to Wassel, but it's actually on Dean. So we'll go south on Hydraulic and Pawnee.
I know where you're at.
Right there on Dean.
What's the one down here on Broadway?
That means Fire Station 2.
Well, whoever backs that fire truck in does a good job. I've watched him 3 times now, and they've nailed it every time.
Are you talking about real big with
Yeah.
the button on?
Yeah, and they back in off of Broadway.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Got backup camera.
He does a good job.
They get swinging frame.
Probably got 2 guys back here.
You guys all do a good job.
So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
James can't see me down here, so.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm
Can you give me an update on the legalities of brush fires this time of year in the city?
Yeah.
Same legality, but I'm not.
Well, so.
Are they allowed?
So my neighbor has this brush that he's got really with 1 acre lots. From one side of his 1 acre lot to the other side of this 1 acre lot, about 6 foot tall and about 12 foot deep. And, he set it on fire the other day. And, of course, I don't think he had a burn permit. I don't think he's supposed to be doing that, but if it actually floated towards my house, I did call that in.
Are you within the city limits
I'm
in
on,
this district?
I'm on 59th Street South.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And-
so you're in District 3.
And so, I mean, the fire department did come out and put it out, you
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
but, and I was concerned about it getting out of control, but I was really unsure at the time about the, you know, whether, I mean, we are in the city limits and it was becoming quite a big fire. And so I was unsure, you know, they asked me when I called 911, did he have a burn permit? And I assumed he did, but I don't have any way of knowing that. I just know that I don't want to put my house at risk.
Okay, within the city limit, it's high 90s. I'm not sure what the actual number is, but I believe it's around 95% of burns like that would be illegal burn.
Okay.
You can't do it within the city limits. Because you had mentioned something about like ash and embers.
Right.
Well, anytime it's a nuisance, one, they shouldn't be burned. Two, if it's a nuisance, if it's a problem, don't hesitate to give a call. That's what we're there for. We got a lot of water to fresh that thing, and chances are, if we try to be friendly neighbors, and you know, chances are, if we get on scene, something like that occurs, because you might have somebody that moved in from out of state where it is legal to burn, and they come into Wichita, and that might be their first time ever burning.
Sure.
We'll come out and tell them what our city's expectations is and what our policies are as far as burning within the city, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
And the first time, it's a first one.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
talking-
done it several times.
I'm
He's been
speaking
there
for
40
myself.
years.
The next time I have to come out,
Yeah.
I'm right, too, because we've already discussed it. We went over what the expectations is, what our policy is. If I have to come out a second time, man, that's it.
Okay.
And once they get a ticket like that, that's something that probably make them think twice about burning.
Yeah.
the next time.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We have another neighbor next door to him. We're neighbors.
Oh, same guy.
Right. Different guy,
Okay.
but he's burning off insulation off the wires so we can redeem the copper in a 55-gallon drum. Same thing.
That's.
Okay.
I'd say that's a 911 call for sure.
It stinks too. My lungs do not like it. Probably don't.
So,
So I thought we were supposed to have fires like in the container, covered.
Yes, you
Is
are.
that for all
Yes,
fires in your backyard, or can you, because she's talking about, that's a configuration.
Free burn, you can't free burn like that.
That's
You know?
crazy.
Yeah.
At least it was farther than the last huge bonfire you created, but within that.
I saw
like,
that
on
one.
my house.
Chances are that person didn't have a burn permit. Chances are you're not going to get a burn permit. So if you see burning like that, and it doesn't look right to you, then don't hesitate to call.
Michael,
Yeah, this question, you may not be able to answer, James may have to. Last year, after that first year of the patrol with police and fire, we got very comprehensive, detailed how the July 4th went.
mhm.
Is it a little early for that, or are we gonna get?
I'll be in the newsletter on Friday.
It'll be in the newsletter on Friday. I know that much. I don't have those numbers. Do you have any of those numbers yet?
I don't at this time, but I can get.
Look for the newsletter on Friday. It'll have those numbers in it.
Are you gonna, I can print that out from there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I thought it was very informative.
Please distribute it at your cost. Well, you know what, Maddie just pulled up her numbers. So,
This is just what Maddie bit off.
so I don't know how raw. So 59 citations were issued. That's surprising me. We issued 138 last year. No reports of safety issues for the enforcement teams this year, like there was the year before. Big improvement from last year. Wichita Fire Department distributed over 1,500 flyers, about the ordinance and enforcement efforts in some of the hot spots around the city. Also contacted nearly 100 citizens who were nearly all very supportive and thankful for the efforts.
How about the cost and the fines cover the cost?
Well, the fines are not meant to cover the cost.
Okay.
That would put, I think, our fire department, our police department, a little bit of a precarious position, feeling like they had to write a ticket instead of educate. And so we had 1,142 complaint calls to the non-emergency line from July 1st through 6th. That's down from the 1,437 last year, but also it now is only for City of Wichita calls. So the 1,437 was for the entire county last year. 51 injuries reported by local medical facilities. Sorry, I missed medical. Some numbers at the same numbers as last year. Ages ranged from 6 months to 66 years old. Mortars, firecrackers, Roman candles are the three most injury-producing items. Fairly consistent with past years. And of course, all three are illegal here. So again, I think you bring up a good point, Michael. Our point is not to just go out and start citing people. We want to educate first. Not everybody is paying that close attention, when their daily lives consist of working and paying bills, and then, oh boy, it's 4th of July, let's go, buy some fireworks and blow them up. So I would say that the education efforts are worth it, especially with as many people as they contacted. So
We did.
Go ahead.
We did have several enforcement teams out that were, out way ahead of it, that were handing out, like you said, information, what you can and what you cannot use within the city limits.
right.
So there was ample warning to me. That's why this number probably went down like it did.
Well,
My question was, does anybody follow up with the medical team here in town? I understand one guy lost a hand from a mortar round or something. Did somebody follow that? Police or you? Because he had to have one.
Well, that falls into our, I'd say like our medical portion. We responded and someone got hurt, we're gonna do a report. And then if someone wanted us to, of course, because it's with the HIPAA laws, we're not gonna share that information.
I
But
understand.
we will,
But does somebody follow up, my question, to the illegal farms where they got them, where they're coming in, or is that beyond your scope?
That would be something that I think our investigation guys, we do have a pretty good top line investigation unit that they would follow up on something like, anytime somebody gets hurt, fireworks, fire, our guys do involved.
They're not illegal, they're just illegal in Wichita. So he could have lost his hand in Sedgwick County, and it would have been legal.
I understand that, but
That's where his hand may have ended up.
my question was,
sure enough.
does the fire department, or the police department, follow up on injuries at the hospital?
Only if they're called in the beginning.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for your
Good
report.
job.
Appreciate it. Okay. That being said, we will move right along. Well, we ended up having the fire department as an off-agenda item. So, but we always love it when they come, and we actually really do appreciate them taking time out to keep us informed. Under new business, we have public art funding. Phil Meyer, Sharon Ferry, Arlen is here. I didn't see you, Arlen. Arlen Hamilton is here. They will present a request to designate a percentage of the capital improvement program, the CIP for public art, which we already do, but this would just kind of codify it. Phil, who's gonna, oh, Sharon's not gonna get up and, wow. Phil, you're up. Arlen?
Good evening. My name is Bill
Oh,
Meyer.
wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
He knows who you are. I have no idea who you are.
They're gonna introduce themselves.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that for you. So,
Thank you.
but, and no pressure, Councilman Clinton, but I will let you know that Monday night I did this at DAP 4. Councilman Fry ran the whole PowerPoint for me.
Oh,
Without a glitch, we were right on tack with each other.
Was-
Yeah, well, it ain't gonna happen like that. here.
I'm not that amazing, and so Maddie is gonna take that responsibility. I do.
That's good.
Uh,
Good evening. I'm Phil Meyer. I'm a landscape architect here in Wichita. I presently work for Baughman Company and have for since 1990, engineering surveying company. We do a lot of improvement projects around town, which I'll kind of explain as we go through this. And I also presently chair the design council for the city of Wichita. Sharon Berry is here with us tonight. She is a past council member with District 6 and also sits on design council with me. Arlen Hamilton is here, and he is a financial wizard. No pressure. He's going to help me tag team this presentation tonight and explain a lot of the numbers to you way better than I can. And then hiding in the very back row, we have Mark Manning with the finance department. I jokingly say he's here to keep an eye on us, but he also can explain a lot of the CIP and the funding and what we're trying to do.
Well, he's District Advisory Board 3's favorite.
And we're here today, bro.
He's here before.
So what we want to talk about tonight is the public art plan, or as we also say, the percent for arts. And what we are trying to do is formalize a structure for a funding system to have art or aesthetic improvements put into all city-funded or special city-funded projects, not all, but special city-funded projects. This is not a new thing in Wichita. We've been doing this for many, many years. The mayor requested that we come and present to all the DABs. So this week and next week, we're doing a crash course. We did 4 DABs Monday night. We're doing this DAB tonight, and then next Monday night, we have our last DAB. Our goal is this ends up on the city council sometime in September. That will be up for council to decide. We're looking for the DABs to give our group some opinions and some thoughts on where we're heading. So the mayor asked Patricia McDonald, who is with the Art Museum, Wichita Art Museum, to put a committee together. And she grabbed 3 members off the design council. She grabbed 2 or 3 members off of the arts council. And then she just grabbed some citizens that are really active and some artists that are active in the community. And we put this percent for arts program together.
So can you walk up here just a little bit closer? So there you go.
Better?
Yeah, so they can hear you
All right.
online. You bet.
I'm ready. There we go. So what do you think about when you think about art in the community? The first most people think about is a great example right there. It's art, and we talk about there's 2 ways to do art. We can do what we call sculpture or plop art, where you put a sculpture or a piece in a location, or we can do integrated aesthetics, where it becomes part of the architecture. And we're going to show you examples of both. Both have their place, both have their time. As a member of the design council, our goal is to try to get the community to do integrated aesthetics so that the whole project, the art is integrated into the final product. And it's not a sculpture like that, but these absolutely have their place. And they're there to get people's interest, draw people into something, to get their attention. So 72% of Americans believe that art unifies the community regardless of age, race, or heritage. That comes from the Americans for the Arts. Art identifies a community. It makes that community it's in special and makes Wichita what Wichita is. So we do our best to use local artists on projects. That's not always true, but we do our best to use local artists. Art also supports the health, safety, welfare. It just makes it a more inviting place for the citizens and helps them out and gives them a place for identity. There we go. Look, we're on a roll now. So 70% of Americans believe that art improves the image and identity of their community. Art also, when we will look at projects, and we presently go through the CIP right now, and we pick what we call special enhancement projects that deserve a little bit of extra. And what we look for are projects that serve a community. We do our best to make sure that every district gets some, but this is a great example of when you have a place where you're going to gather people, and people are going to gather in a group for an event, aesthetic improvements around that area just puts people in a better frame of mind when they show up, and it gives the community identity. Great economic benefit to having art and aesthetic improvements in a project or in a community. So most of your employers, especially when we're out there competing against other communities, are looking for a place to move their business where their employees want to be. And that's one of the things they look for. What cities have programs for arts and what improvements do you do? So our employees are excited about moving to this community. Art comes in many different forms. So that one in the upper left-hand corner for the West Douglas Park is what I talk about when I say it's aesthetic improvement with the whole structure. And then you have a shade structure there, you have a mural built into the back of it. It all focuses as one identity. It doesn't have to be a piece of art. There's no more building there at 21st and Broadway. The architecture is the aesthetic improvements. And the artist can work with the architect and work elements into the building itself. I think a great example of that is the facility we have here. This particular facility was part of an aesthetic improvement project for the city of Wichita. Yes, sir.
I'm going to become the accounting public servant. I think this West Douglas Park is great, and I think everything you list on a printed piece of paper ought to have an address. Where in the hell is West Douglas Park?
West Douglas Park is on Maple, just east of West Street, next to the Coleman.
I just think if you're going to print something and you want people to enjoy it or see it, you ought to put an address.
Put an address on it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the city only addresses buildings. And many parks don't have a building with an
Well,
address.
they can keep it at the corner.
On the block
Okay.
number.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's my main point. Other than that.
duly noted. We can do that. So Kellogg is an example. So, and I date myself with this one. And I'll babble too long. So if I start talking too long and you guys are tired of it, tell me. I get excited when I talk about stuff like this. I'm going to date myself here, but in 1986, 1987, Kellogg and West Street was the first overpass improvement. First project, the city tried to do some aesthetics improvements with it. Well, if you drive by looking Kellogg and West today, and then you drive out east and look at how Kellogg looks, what great improvement our community has made and how that process has improved as we've gone along. This bridge at Central and McLean, the whole purpose of that bridge in the beginning was to put the goal, or what the city was trying to do, is put a water main across the river. There was no bridge. We wanted a water main across the river. So as we went through the process, we thought, well, what a great way to make connectivity. We can link the east side of the river with the west side of the river, the museum district. So we built a pedestrian bridge, and you can see their water mains hung off the side of that, but you don't really realize that. And you wouldn't know that's the first goal was to get a water main across the river. And so Monday night at DAD, one of the DAD members pointed out, so this is the top right one is an entry to Watson Park. What a unique entrance. I mean, you don't really realize how you could just have a drive going in there, but we came in there with some aesthetic improvements and really created a nice entry. And it's those little details that we're looking for with Design Council when we do that. And then educational stuff. You know, Kent Williams did the Lincoln Street Dam there, but I also know he worked on this facility here and creating educational opportunities and our art improvements is what we're looking to do as often as we can.
Phil, if I could interrupt,
Yep.
Even this water center, it's designed around artistic components, and throughout this park with poetry, with the landscaping, with the way that this building is designed, just what we're sitting in now. If it was just a concrete box, it would be extremely boring, and it would not be an enjoyable place to be. So, and
This is a unique little jewel in my opinion.
It is.
I've always enjoyed coming down here to this facility. So, yes, sir.
There's a telephone pole on the opposite of this fence right here on the other side of the street. Does that help the Arctic?
Say what?
does it what?
You're gonna have to help me.
Right here,
Yes, sir.
you stand, but you back that right across the street. The telephone pole broke in half for 3 months now.
Okay.
Does it help your pet lives in it?
Not yet.
Uh,
Not yet.
That's
But-
Somebody needs to call Westar, it sounds like.
Yeah,
You would think after a while they'd fix that.
it looks like trash over there.
I want to know how come I wasn't the one that brought up the sarcastic remark.
Okay, okay, we're getting back on track. Phil, please,
So I
please.
go back to my economic comment, and I like to, and I think Arlen will do a much better job of presenting it, but the economics of our aesthetic improvements is very important, and it's the first impression people get. And so we use the airport as an example. First impression a traveler sees when they come to this town. And then when they get on Kellogg and drive down Kellogg to downtown, part of when we first started the Kellogg improvements, the manager was just screaming at everybody, it's gotta look great. Because when they arrived at downtown Wichita, I wanted to see something special. And so we create gateways also into different little areas or districts, just to set the stage for you're entering something different and pay attention to what you're about to see. And,
Well, I have a question, if you don't mind.
sure.
On this one that you have the original drain on the area of the 21st Street,
Yes, sir.
are there any plans to do something around that? Because based on what you're saying, it seems that you want the art to be enjoyable for a lot of people. So are there any plans to do something around that area so people can enjoy that art? Or is it just going to be?
Not that I know of at the moment. Okay, but not that I know of at the moment, but those are things we can talk about and we can look at. And we work off CIP, which we'll get to in a minute. So we work off CIP and if something's in the CIP, but that is a great example of neighborhood identity. And as you drive around town, you'll see a lot of murals and stuff that give each little neighborhood, each little district their identity. And that's one of the goals we have with aesthetic improvements.
Out there at 21st and Market, where this Melmar, they have stuff going on up there all the time. They have food truck events and little neighborhood community events.
Right, but you have places where you can do it. But here, it's basically,
Yeah, that's
you just
a-
have to drive. The only thing that you see is it's a nice mural, but I say there is no a place where people can sit and enjoy like a cafe or something like that. would be a nice idea
It's
to have
on
some
private property.
additional, I'm sorry?
It's on private property, and I think the intent of the artist was to have the biggest one in the world, and so that was what he defined.
Right, yeah, and she did
Unfortunately,
it.
it does make it hard for everyone to get to it.
Right. Yeah, I was
It's
just
not
curious
exact-
about that. Thank you.
Phil?
So the center one, just a water pipe. That water pipe very well could come up out of the ground, gone over 10 feet and gone back into the ground and kept rolling and it just as normal. But there's an opportunity without much expense to create something within that little park where they had to pop a water pipe up. How many people here have seen the troll along the river? Yeah, if you haven't, you gotta go exploring to find it.
Even when
Okay.
it wasn't there.
Somewhere between Kellogg and Murdoch on the east side of the river, you'll find the troll. And I've told people that you may have to walk it 2 or 3 times to find it, but it's a little hidden gem in there that one of the artists did. It's just a great thing. There are 350 public art programs in the United States presently. 283 of those public art programs are run by the governmental agency in that community. The others are run by private funds, private entities.
But outsourced by the government.
Okay, and I'm gonna turn to you. This is where you and I are gonna start tag teaming. Get ready. Okay, man. So, yeah, we'll keep going. I keep talking, so I'll be quiet. So the peer cities, do you want to cover the peer cities for a minute?
You sure can. Really hard to see there on the screen, so if you have the printouts in front of you, you can see there's some cities listed. We consider peer cities. All of these have been visited by city council members in the city to city program that the Chamber of Commerce does. And so what we did is we went and looked at what those cities have in place to make sure that they have the proper amount of beautification going on in order to be competitive in the job market. So as we look at each of these, you can see the year that the ordinance was passed, and you can see the amount they have set aside for art and aesthetic improvement. The one that's up there that is slightly misleading is Des Moines, because all of the other cities, they just use their entire capital improvement budget and they benchmark against that. They use that as their multiplier to come up with the number. Des Moines uses some dedicated funding streams, and therefore they have the 1.5% of a portion of their CIP. The others have 1% of their entire CIP, except for Austin, and Austin has absolutely committed to this concept, and they plan to be the most artistic and aesthetically pleasing city in the nation, so they have 2% of their entire CIP. And all of the others are generally 1%.
I have a question. So these percentages are the current, like 2018, 2019 percentages, not the percentages of when this was incorporated, right?
The ordinance was passed in the year that's listed, and that ordinance is still in force.
No, I understand that. So if the ordinance was passed, like in Boise in 2010,
Yes.
is it still at 1%? Have they
That's
increased that? Okay. That's
Still
what I
1%.
want to be clear on.
Now, one of the reasons most of the cities use a percentage is because the pool with inflation grows, that the pool of dollars for the entire capital improvement budget
Right.
grows. So if you just take 1%, then that number does end up bigger, but that's why most use a percentage.
Self-maintaining. Self-maintaining.
There you go. So this is where I go off script a little bit. The list that you have right there are specific cities that city council members have visited on their trips and saw the art program that they had in place. I also point out, you know, I go back to the economic thing, and our push on this is to grow Wichita and have a strong economy. So I look at cities like Des Moines, I look at cities like Lincoln and Omaha, Albuquerque, Boise's on that list. I look at cities of a similar size and character to Wichita, and those cities I named have art programs also. in their- The council hadn't visited, so I probably didn't throw in that list.
May have mentioned or going to, but since I've been around too long, probably for this, how long have we had the 1% dedication?
We haven't. That's why we're here.
I
I'll
thought we
explain
always
that.
had, just like when they built the substation over here, they had.
I'll explain that here in just
Okay,
a minute. It's coming, so it's coming. So as Manny,
It's hard to take notes and, yeah,
it
Yeah.
is.
she's doing
She's doing a
amazing.
great job. So one of the things you have in aesthetic improvement is an element, obviously you want to work during the day, but lighting gives you an opportunity to make that a 24-hour experience. So we've done this on several projects with the railroad overpass downtown, but we always look at, can we incorporate lighting? What can we do to turn this into an experience that happens 24 hours a day? So a little bit of history for you guys. Like I mentioned earlier, Kellogg and West Street was one of the first projects, but for 30 to 34 years, the city of Wichita has made sure that we have beautification in projects when we do it. For the last 20 years, or for over the last 20 years, we've tried to make sure that a design team on a special project has an artist consultant as part of the team. So if our firm is hired by the city of Wichita to do a special project, we go find an artist and hire them and put them on our team, and we work together as we go through the design process. But there is presently no ordinance in place. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is establishing an ordinance that sets funding. And we've been doing this for 20 years and have been very successful. Without the ordinance, the times change, people change, council, 8 years and then they change. So those things change over time. If we can get the ordinance in place, the cities we're competing against have an ordinance, and we want to be equal with that.
Or better.
Or better. We will absolutely want to be better. So
We haven't been down to the Keeper of the Plains lately in the evening. That is a happening place. There are hundreds to maybe 1,000 people peacefully showing off their dogs, walking around, waiting for the thing to light up. It is a very pleasant evening experience.
you guys are just so far ahead of me, because that's coming. Multiple times I'm like, it's coming.
It was too slow for me. I waited for a while.
So presently what we do, city staff sits down with design council, we create subcommittees, and we look at the upcoming CIPs, and we pick out what we think are special projects. We do our best to make sure that we cover all districts, that we, fire stations, police stations, parks, bridges, just arterial improvements, to make sure that we cover all the districts, and we have some good distribution with that. But right now, we sit down, pick it out, work it out. We make a recommendation to city council. Design council does not pick the projects that get or the amount of funding that goes to a project. We make a recommendation to city council. City council makes the final decision. With that, I'm gonna let
James?
Yes,
I
go ahead.
just wanted to acquaint them with that. In District 3, we have a unique art, I would guess it would be called a sculpture. Down at the Kansas Aviation Museum, at the entrance going into it, we had one of our mechanics designed and built the conversion of a Stearman aircraft and changing into a jet. So in that one sculpture, it shows where Wichita through Lloyd Stearman and Walter Beach and the men that helped develop the Stearman aircraft, and then that aircraft turning into a jet aircraft. Well, that is on a pedestal going in as you enter onto the Kansas Aviation Museum at 31st Street.
Yes, I've seen that.
Okay, and so I think that's something that's unique to the city of Wichita. and it was created here. And so I think it's something, now this was, it's a nonprofit, did this and funded that. But that's something I think that shows where the community is also interested in our park.
Yes. And what a great entry.
Oh, yeah.
What a great monument.
Of course, they're gonna be working on the entrance to the Kansas Aviation Museum to make it more of a destination type entrance, but that's something I just wanted to bring to your attention.
For what it's worth, Cessna C-10 out there, up at their service center, where people, come into town to have their planes worked on and stuff. Basically, when they walk out there to get their rental car or whatever, Cessna has a art piece kind of like that. It's just it's up on a plaque, more or less, that goes from the travel there to the citation. Pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a sculpture, but it's a
And that's
a historical thing.
Aviation has been an integral part of it.
Right, absolutely.
Arlen,
So something beyond just a sign saying, here's the entrance, sparks a conversation.
Yeah.
It shows that they care. So that's a different subject. One clarification I do want to make is, we do have an ordinance in place that was passed in 1999. Phil and I haven't talked a lot about that, but it's a very high-level ordinance. It has very little specifics. It established what we currently have as a design council. And it said that art and aesthetics should be considered in city projects. It's a very short ordinance.
I'm aware of that. I consider it so different than what we're doing, but yes, you're correct. And thank you for the correction.
So we've tried to build on that ordinance by looking at other cities, because we see that 350 cities in the nation have an ordinance that call out a calculation of how do we decide how much art and aesthetic improvement are we going to have. So what we've tried to do, we've worked on this now for almost 4 years, trying to get it right for Wichita. So we've looked all across the nation. We've tried to put these pieces into place. So see some more graphics up here or on your printouts. And once again, I try to be as precise as I can be. So when it says fund calculated on 1.5% of the CIP, that would make it look like we are doing that on the entire CIP. That is not the current writing of the ordinance. Right now, the way the ordinance is written, we are calculating this on 1.5% of specific funding sources within the CIP. It ends up being about half of the CIP. There are some things that are being excluded, and this is one of the things that we'd like to discuss tonight. And it's still an ongoing discussion with city finance, with city council, and with city management, to try to figure out exactly how we decide what is going to be used each year for the design council to determine on these projects how much should be spent. Yes.
I just want to make sure I have this right. So basically, right now, you have, the way the city does this is that each project, say, I was just thinking about Fire Station 19 down there on South Broadway here north of 47th Street, which has, I think, has a beautiful artistic feature on the front of it. So what you're saying is, like, in each individual project around the city, there's a small percentage that's dedicated to artistic value of whatever that project needs.
Not each project. He's saying is every single project going to be 1%.
So what we have currently is, as these projects like the fire station come up, and the design council says, yes, this needs some kind of aesthetic improvement. We want just a steel corrugated building here, and something we want to be proud of. But they don't know, there is no mechanism to determine that money. So the design council will look at it and they will say, we recommend this much. And at the end of the day, once they've made the recommendations for a year, we don't really have a way of knowing if that's staying in the lines. Are we spending too much? Are we not spending enough? How are we comparing to our competitors across the nation? So right now, they're doing a good job. We have a great water center here. We have a fire station that we're proud of up the street. But that's all you would not believe, Phil can probably talk more to this, how much effort goes into trying to figure out what those dollars are, because we don't have a mechanism that helps guide them. We don't have any lane lines on our highway, it's just kind of wide open right now.
That's a good way to put it, Arlen.
I'm a little jealous on that one. Here, we gotta handle it.
Okay.
Harlan, do we currently have or have recently had any of our art projects that are grant funded?
Well,
You know,
the Horizontes project on the grain elevator.
That was grant
That was
funded,
grant
right?
funded.
is it common that we get some of our art is funded through grant?
I would say we have a lot of grant funded art around the city,
Okay,
but typically it's not on like our freeways, our fire stations, because usually the grants are not given to local governments. They're
Sure.
usually given to either organizations or private companies.
right.
How does memorials fit into this? Like, I'm gonna use the Vietnam Wall in Washington. Is that considered an art project, or is it a whole different definition of art? There are art components to that Vietnam Wall, because they could have just put up a steel corrugated panel and put the names on there, and the names would have been there. But would it have been special? Would it have drawn us? Would it have evoked the emotion that is brought when you visit? And you have all the artistic components in there, it just wouldn't be the same. So it's a mixture. You get involved as a council, if somebody comes with you and wants to do something that's more of a memorial. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a definition.
So if it's on public ground and it has public funding to it, then the city would send that to design council to review and make a recommendation to the city council.
Like that Veterans Park down there, that's right about where the troll is.
So on this page real quick, and then we'll flip to the next one, but on this page here, I want to point out, presently, the city of Wichita, there is $50,000 that goes to maintenance of existing park developments. And $50,000 a year doesn't fix much. That budget, I mean, there are some really unfortunate decisions that have to be made on what gets fixed and what doesn't because of the present budget. So when we first started this, personally, I was a little greedy. I wanted all 100% to go to new projects because I want to make this the best community we can. But what we've done is we've decided 20% of those funds need to go into the maintenance of what we have, which is greatly enhanced taking care of what we've got from where we are today. And I'm very supportive of this. This needs to happen, but this isn't just for new projects. I want to point out we're also going to use this ordinance to take care and maintain what we have today. Matt?
Well, could I make a point? Another one? Now, see, the city of Wichita owns the Kansas, the old Wichita Municipal Airport, is still owned by the city. That's an Art Deco building. There's sculptures all over that building, and people come to our city to see that Art Deco Municipal Airport because that's part of the era. It was built in the 30s, early 30s. And so we have people coming into the city of Wichita just to look at that structure. And that structure has to be maintained. And so what he's talking about here is once you have something like that, you have to have a maintenance budget to properly maintain.
So we've looked at that little, I think it's actually a 2-page ordinance. That's with even all the legal stuff on there. So we've looked for every gap we can find in that. And we have built, it's approximately a 20-page ordinance. And it helps clarify the role of city staff. It clarifies the role of the design council. It clarifies the funding sources, or it will clarify some funding sources when we get to the final number. And it makes this to where it can start running like a smoothly oiled machine rather than every decision having to be agonized about. So that is the goal of this ordinance. And we want to wanted to come out and talk to you about it, so you could give us the feedback that we've already been getting, and just get an idea. If you could go ahead and move that forward. This is impossible to read up here, and even on your printouts, it might be impossible to read if you don't love spreadsheets as much as I do.
You see him glowing, he's starting to glow.
So this is why they call it a spreadsheet, spreads all across the page. But what we've tried to do there is we've tried to figure out what would this look like 10 years in the future, because we do the capital improvement budget 10 years at a time. And as we've looked at, what does the 1% of the total CIP look like? What does 1.5% of particular carve-outs look like? And frankly, what have we been spending? So the city council asked city finance, I don't know how many weekends these poor folks had to work to do this, but they went back 5 years, went through all the invoices, all the projects, and they established how much we spent over the last 5 years. And it came out to 2.4%, or 1.4%. 1.4% of the total CIP. If we were to calculate during those 5 years how much the capital improvement budget was, 1.4% of that went to aesthetic improvement and public art. So we're trying now to figure out how do we navigate through this. We know we have the big project of the airport, which has very large art pieces, and there's a lot of money spent in there. We see East Kellogg just about to finish up. Fingers crossed that's going to get done. And there's a lot of artistic components in there. I don't know if you folks have had a chance to go that far east, but the bridges and the walls are something to be proud of. My son lives in Dallas, and our public road out there looks better than what they're doing in one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. We can be proud of that. However, by doing that, we have come up to 1.4% of the total CIP. Most of our competitor cities are doing 1% of the full CIP, other than Austin, which is doing 2% of the CIP. So we built the spreadsheet. We tried to project best we could as to what that 10-year plan was going to look like. Right now, the ordinance is written with 1.5% of these dedicated funding sources, and that gets us to about 1.1 million a year that would go towards art and aesthetic improvement. The last 5 years, we've been spending 2.4 million a year. So it would be a substantial drop off from 2.4 down to 1.1. So what our group is recommending to city council, go ahead. Yeah, on your printout, it looks like it's $2,464 because you left off zero.
Nice.
That was my next question was, how can you go from $3,000 to $1 million?
Well, we got it fixed on the screen.
Yeah,
It was a typo that we found.
Sorry.
No, you know what I'm glad?
I do not have a warm fuzzy feeling about your formula anymore.
This is what happens when you do stuff
Formulas
with
do not buy me the stuff with the white lettering. That was artistic.
Cindy, do you have a question? Did you have a question?
No,
No?
that was the question I was gonna
Okay, okay.
ask about that.
Zero here, zero there, you know.
Arlen, I'm just
Yeah.
impressed that
Yeah.
I'm actually reading it.
Go ahead, Arlen, go ahead.
So what our group is recommending to city council is that we go with 2% of these limited funding sources, which gets us up to about 1.4 million a year to art and aesthetic improvement. Even though we've been spending 2.4, we don't know that that pace is something we want to lock into an ordinance. Though I would like to compete with Austin, but one step at a time. So we're recommending 2% of these limited funding sources so we can at least get close to what 1% of the CIP would be, which is 1.7 million.
So we're gonna be at 1.4, and what we recommend, the way it's written right now, it's at 1.1. So that's really where we get on finance. We can go like to see more finance questions next, but if you go ahead and flip me to the next slide, then we can get to this.
Wait a minute, I'm getting there quick.
Well, I'm on that page. When you got the years for the CIP spread out, I noticed there's quite a variance in some of the at-large funding. How does that differ? Or are you about ready to explain that?
Well, that is just determined by projects, and the guy that wrote that budget can explain better than I can.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we don't have an even demand for projects in given years.
Okay.
So some years we have more projects, some years we have less projects.
Thank you.
So here on the last page, if you look over on the left of your printout, you'll see that is how the Keeper of the Plains was first installed. And this was back before we had the first ordinance. So we're not considering what we're doing for the community. The artist gave the sculpture to the city, it was put on a concrete pad, there was a pathway out to it, and that's what we did. Once we had the ordinance in place, and there was focus on this, then the Keeper was raised, the lighting was added, the pedestrian bridge was put in, and it was made into something special. And today it's on the vast majority of our government printouts. It's, as you mentioned, there are hundreds, if not 1,000 people most evenings gathering over there. If I get off work late at night and I drive by there at 8, 9 o'clock, it is just packed out there around the Keeper of the Plains. I doubt that there were ever crowds like that around its original installation.
It's also educational as well as entertainment, really. It's take down the region.
It just kind of talks about who we are here in Kansas. So if you have questions beyond what you already asked, yeah, I'll do my best. I'm sure Phil, Sharon.
I do have a question. Whenever this.
Yep, please.
Whenever you guys are planning.
I think we're done.
Well, based on what you're saying, you are looking for obtaining percentage, right, for this CIP, right? From the city council, and after the city council decide what percentage is going to be, if they decide what percentage will be appropriate, how do you determine the projects of these? You say you have a council, right? How many people are in this council and how is it structured? How do you make your decisions about the art that is going to be put in the city?
So Design Council has 11 members at the moment. What we've done in the past, so that has got 2 landscape architects, 2 engineers, 2 artists, 1 graphic artist, and 2 citizens at large. Those were appointed by City Council. So that's how the makeup of that works. We typically, for the last 5 years, we create subcommittees, 1 for engineering, 1 for parks, 1 for maintenance. And those subcommittees sit down with the department head and we look at the CIP that's coming up for the next 10 years, and we look at projects specifically, we're looking at the next 1 or 2 years, but we get the whole spreadsheet and we look at it and we pick projects that we think that we want to recommend to council that they consider this for special consideration.
So those subcommittees ask the big council about the projects that they want. Do you consult the city? Do you consult the different groups around in order to get the ideas of what you guys want to do on the projects?
We look
When you guys decide, okay, we want to do this.
We look at the CIP, we recommend specific projects to council. Once those projects, so I think what you're asking, I may be messing this. We don't go out to neighborhoods or anything for input at that point, but if a project is selected and we put an artist on that, one of the artist's job is to work with the neighbors or the community in that specific area to determine what it should be. What we're looking at from a high level picture is opportunity. where is the city gonna spend money? And we need to do something special on that project for the citizens, whether it's for the whole city or whether it's for a specific district. We want to make sure when we spend money, it's at the right time, the right location, and it's appropriate to serve the whole community. The one thing we didn't mention in our presentation that was part of mine, we have design council kind of has standards that we expect, like on all mile line arterial roads. You know, here's where we want with the sidewalk system, here's where we want for crosswalks, we want the black light poles, we want, you know, we've raised some expectations that are just standard on all projects with the city. You know, what we're looking for, or what are the special consideration projects. And if it is a special consideration project, then that design team is going to bring it to design council twice in the design process. And we're going to review it and make sure that what they're doing is appropriate.
I had a question.
Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
It's like on Clap Park, you know, we're trying to put together a plan on how to utilize that ground now. When would you all be involved in that?
I would.
Park projects, so for example, the old landfill, they brought us the old landfill and it was being developed with a master plan to look at it. Prop wetlands at the 29th of May, we looked at, we're making improvements on that right now. To answer your question, when we get into the design phase, they've done some concepts. I think they're going to put that park out to bid in the next 3 to 6 months. And if they do, and they select a design firm, that's when we would get involved.
Yeah. And it could also be on a project by project basis too, because, you know, master plans, they're great. They're a plan, you put them in place, but they're also meant to be flexible because the needs of the community may change, right, into the future. So it could be even on a project by project basis. If for some reason we were grant funded a huge water park out there, and I'm talking about, you know, spray park and those, we'd like to have artistic elements to them. Maybe, you know, then on a case by case basis, the design council would get involved to do that, or huge playground. Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. Good job.
Well.
No, go ahead. I got all night.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna let him pick.
No, go ahead. I've already answered the question, but I do want to answer.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, my concern is, first off, I think this is great. I think public art is absolutely fundamental to the success of our metropolitan community as a whole. I'm certainly not, you know, distinguishing that it's not important, because it is. But when it comes to allocating, my concern is when it comes to allocating money, you know, another hot topic that we've had recently is the TNR thing with the cat issues. We've had a group come forward that wants to bring a new ordinance or put in a new ordinance to replace the existing ordinance, when really, to me, and I think the majority of people think the problem is the budget for animal control was cut in the first place, so the existing ordinance isn't being enforced. So where do we determine, you know, all of a sudden we're going to create this big pool here, but we're cutting from animal control, which is another big, you know, very important top shelf need for our city as well. So I guess that's, how do we determine, you know, we're going to create another huge funding pool here, but we've just cut.
Sounds like this one's yours. That's where we started.
If it's not his, it's mine. So go ahead, Arlen.
We have an operating budget, and that's where animal control, police, and fire all come from. That operating budget is established by council in the city, and Mark, you have.
What do you call that?
Too, yep. So all this is trying to do is the money that is over in the capital improvement budget, which is only for capital improvements. It's to make sure that if down the road, let's say we do have a recession, It doesn't mean we're trying to take money out of here and set it aside for this. What we're trying to do is say, if that whole pool shrinks, let's just build a little slower. Rather than saying, well, let's just build ugly corrugated buildings, let's just be.
Well, certainly not.
So we don't want that. We would rather say, okay, let's wait another 6 months before we build it and get that money. So one way of looking at this is if we take, let's say we took 1% of the whole CIP. All you're really looking at is out of 365 days, you're only looking at 3.65 days of funding being put to making things nice. So if you had to save money, all you'd have to do is push that project out 3.65 days. So at the end of 10 years, the project that got pushed the most would be 36.5 days. I can live with that.
So let me tell you a little bit from my perspective too. So if we have a dedicated funding source, I'll take that back. It's not a dedicated funding source, but if we have dedicated percentage, it helps us be more intentional about how we go about our projects. So when we're more intentional, then we can build in cost without even making the project cost more money. And so being more intentional about how you're going about aesthetically improving projects is important, having a plan. But to even go further and answer your question about, well, we can't do this here, so why are we spending money over here? And so I always, and people roll their eyes at me, but our budget has many different funding mechanisms and different pools. And we would never, so the CIP, which is the Capital Improvement Program, for those that don't know on TV here, our Capital Improvement Program is paid for partly by cash and mostly by debt, utilizing our credit. And we would never want to put ongoing operations on credit. You wouldn't want to pay your electric bill every month on credit unless you knew that that was your mechanism for paying it, you were paying that off every month. And so when we do those improvements, or when we're talking about the operation of something, that all has to be taken care of from our tax dollars, from a source of money that we know we're going to get every year, and we need to make sure that we keep that debt at a certain level, and that we pay with the general fund. But when it comes to actually improvement projects, allocating the 1% is not going to hurt the operation or help necessarily. It's really kind of a, I don't want to say a net zero.
This isn't robbing
but
Peter.
no, it's not. Thank you. That's even better. It's not. It's not.
And I'd also say we've been doing this.
Yeah.
It's just not actually written into an ordinance, but we're
Right.
not taking money out of a fund that exists today.
Right.
We're just clarifying the operation of the president.
Yeah, and some people that I've gotten feedback from were concerned exactly about what you said, Jared. They're, well, if you can't fund this, why are you going to spend extra money over here? And you know, that's not the case at all. We're not robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Well, James, does that put a boundary on how much money you can spend in a particular period?
Theoretically, it puts a boundary, but I personally, because I know that we're already spending way more than is being asked for, I personally want that to be a minimum. I would love if we have a project that we know that we can work in some aesthetic improvements and really not go overboard, but make something special, then I would like to see that happen. Here's a great example, and I will get to you, Cindy. I see you. Your hand raised over there.
Proceed.
Yes. Is the library. Now, controversial thing, right? A lot of people say, well, why did you build a library when we don't have money for this, this, and this, right? Well, again, same principle. You know, we're not, paying out of our ongoing expenses for the library, comes out of CIP. But we did not aesthetically improve that the way to the measure that I think we should have. We did a lot of things halfway, and it's not as great as it could have been. Now, we've left room for some of those projects to be done, but We tried to pinch and pinch and pinch, and we could have just spent a little bit more and really made an amazing space. It's a cool space right now. It's a nice space. It's better than what we had. A lot more people are using it. I dare you to try to get a parking space. It's really hard, but it's just not a eye-popping wow like it could have been. And so that would be my kind of why I want to be able to be flexible to spend a little bit more than that 1.5 or whatever percent, 2%. That's much as my perspective. Go ahead.
Okay.
You and then Cindy.
Okay.
He also had his hand raised. Cindy.
I've been waving around here like a swat
I
mosquito.
know. I apologize.
Just to follow up on you, the new library. You know, and I've already discussed this with you, and you discussed me. I'm not real sure who the committee is that says this is art and this is balderdash, because to my view, they put up 16-foot fence and called it art. Just looks like an old wood fence that they went out to a farm and ripped up. Art, you know.
Your definition of art isn't my definition of art. Or is it?
Exactly, and I just don't see a fence being art. But anyway, there has, you probably alluded to it, I'm not sure I got the real answer. This 11-person committee, is that what okay. So there's a project. You've got 1% that you're going to dedicate to art. Do you like send out feelers, hey, artists, give us concepts? And then if and when that happens, who selects, well, we like yours, can it be done within the funding? Have at it.
So we select special consideration projects.
Okay.
And the city of Wichita puts that project out for a RFQ. Request
Okay.
for qualifications from the appropriate design.
All right.
Civil, architectural, whatever. Then they identify in that RFQ that you need an artist on this team, you need an electrical engineer on this team, you need whatever that may be. It may be an acoustics person if you're doing it.
So the artist is included in the original, we need
So,
a
yeah.
vote for building this thing.
8 firms applied for that
Okay.
job, and the city shortlisted 3. Well, 8 firms have submitted a RFQ with the artist they want to use it.
Okay.
And those shortlisted to 3, and then those 3 firms go in and interview for the project with a city staff. And that's a whole nother series, but there's going to be 6 to 10 people sitting in there listening to our presentation. And our artist is standing there with us, pointing out their vision, and that's how it's.
So each architect, engineer, building thing has its own art project as a component of what they're presenting.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, we've already alluded to the fact that the Air Museum is iconic. Absolutely, totally agree. Keeper of the Plains, iconic. Absolutely agree. Why not Century 2?
You know, I use Century 2 in my presentation I did Monday night at District 5. If you don't mind me taking this one. I use Century 2 as a great example of why we need aesthetic improvements and what a great piece of architecture that has been. And I'm not going to take sides on which, whether it stays or whether it goes. It did its job, and that's what we want design council and our input to city council do. We have a piece of architecture that's over 50 years old that is definitely iconic. Everybody knows where it is. Aesthetic improvements, absolutely, and it's built into it. It goes from the architecture of the building itself to the staircases that lead up to it, to the plazas that exist around it. That's what design council wants. And that's our goal. And that is a great project, is a great example of achieving that goal. And so when people go, oftentimes they'll go, well, you just want to plop art onto a project. My example is, and I was sitting in a presentation one time and they were going over economic development downtown, and the guy pointed out and went, well, Phil's here. He's going to make sure we move a piece of art in front of this. And I'm like, no, I don't want a piece of art in front of it. And Century 2 is my example of people. That is the goal we have with everything. The library should be that iconic.
The new or old?
the new one in 50 years should be that iconic.
Well, see, I kind of like the old because it's kind of like Frank Lloyd Wright-ish.
Everything needs.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're not tearing it down.
I
so
heard.
You'll be able to continue to
Yeah.
love it.
Now, here's where it gets ugly, and I'm not going to talk about bypass, and I'm not going to talk about scooters, okay?
But
What
you
I am-
just did.
What I am going to talk about is, it seems like we are on a lemming-like rush to be Dallas. Dallas doesn't have freeze-thaw cycles. We do. These brick crosswalks have got to be a maintenance nightmare. We paved over or tore out brick streets for that reason. Why can't you, instead of all that high-maintenance brick crosswalk, why couldn't you put a contrasting color concrete in and texture it to where it might even look like brick? And it's done. It lasts as long as the street.
So
Oh, go ahead.
I'll
I'll let you take it if you want.
I'll take that. So there are some ADA components to why the streets are done the way they're done. For one,
That helps, absolutely.
go ahead and you can finish.
So,
Will.
you know, the brick, and a lot of it's concrete pavers. Okay,
Okay.
sometimes just brick, sometimes just concrete
Okay,
pavers.
right, you're right.
They hold their color. If we went out there and we poured concrete, stamped it, and then painted it, the wear
Or
and tear-
colored the concrete.
the wear and tear on the tires, I think you would have city maintenance tell you that it costs them more to go deal with that over the next 20 years than it does to go deal with the brick when it pops up and they need to replace it. They will spend more money because anything we paint, and I can show you some examples where we painted or stained.
Okay.
A lot of times we go in and stain the
Yeah, like tennis
concrete.
courts.
It just doesn't last from the traffic and the use that it takes to where the concrete pavers actually last longer.
So how long does it take somebody to repair those crosswalks when bricks, pavers, or whatever go blasting out of them as they frequently do?
They're not hard. I can't answer that question. I'm not gonna make up an answer for you.
Seems to me like going over those new potholes, it's gotta be just as hard on tires
So
as,
I think to answer your question, we should bring maybe city engineering in for one of our DAD meetings.
oh, good.
How about that?
Okay.
You're in rare form tonight. You are in rare form tonight. Cindy, Cindy, please go ahead.
They're going over there, sorry.
So I'm absolutely in support of an ordinance that designates a percentage for art in this community. I'm a strong supporter of art. I struggled a little bit with, a percentage of 1.5 or 2 as I looked at some of the other cities, and many of them are at 1. And, I attend the city-to-city trips and have for several years, and we were in Boise last year, and who knows what 1% of Boise's is at this point in time, because they're growing so rapidly, and everything that's gone up there. Where I struggle is, I invested 3 years in developing the community investment plan. And with that came a lot of research, studies, surveys of the community and what they wanted. And what concerns me even more is that quality of life projects were at the bottom of what the city wanted. And the streets and safety and security were at the top. And so while that was a struggle for me to hear, because I think quality of life things are very important in the community. And I had 3 years to look at what do we do in this community, because our streets are behind in maintenance. And one of the things that came out of that community investment plan was that we will maintain what we already have. And I preached on that during that 3-year process. If we can't maintain what we already have, why are we building something new that we can't maintain? And so I'm glad to see that that's implemented into a lot of things within the decisions that the city has to make. So anyways, those are some of my concerns. Again, I'm totally supportive of an ordinance. Maybe 1.25%. I don't know. I just struggle with going to that 1.5 or that 2%, looking at what some of the other communities are doing, even Oklahoma City. I go to Oklahoma City, they've done a fantastic job. They're doing it 1%. And working, because I work with nonprofit organizations, that's what I do, I mean, grading with nonprofits, knowing what grant funding is available out there, I wonder how much we could supplement with grant funding for projects in the community.
So the difficulty with these numbers is we're comparing apples to oranges because of what our city is hoping to do closer to Des Moines. So we're not taking, Oklahoma City's taking 1% of their whole CIP as a calculator. We would be taking 1.5% or 2% of about between a third and a half of our CIP.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, we would be below 1%. We would be at about 0.75. If we did the 2%, we would be at about 0.6 of our whole CIP if we do the 1.5 of the limited funding sources. That's where it just starts really going off the rails, and without just sitting down and drawing it out, it becomes difficult. But right now, what is in the ordinance has us doing about 0.6 of our CIP, whereas Oklahoma City is doing 1%.
So Mark, I'm curious about what your thoughts are about the percentages. I mean, not really, I mean, like I said, I'm all supportive of incorporating an ordinance, but what are your thoughts about the percentage? Because you work with the capital program.
Well, it's really not my place to say what the appropriate percentage would be, but I would echo, I think what Harlan has said is one benefit of this is that it provides transparency and predictability, which are things that we value in the finance department, so regardless of what the actual percentage is.
Okay.
James?
Yeah.
On the Kellogg project, my understanding was that took a lot of the growth funds from the city of Wichita as far as doing the maintenance within the community. Now that thing is finalized and we're getting done on it, is that going to in any way increase any additional financing or funding for the improvements on city streets within the city of Wichita? And that's my question to you.
So there are absolutely CIP majors proposed that the council is currently considering right now. We're doing exactly what you suggested. Freeways that we de-emphasize, now that we've almost got Kellogg finished in 96, and all that sales tax money will be spent on road maintenance.
And just to chime in, I'm excited about that because the county has been using their portion of that sales tax for road maintenance and road projects already. The city of Wichita has been the one that has built Kellogg at over $500 million. Interesting, the state has had very little to do with the state highway that is running through Wichita. And so it's about time that our citizens get to see some of that benefit of that sales tax infused in the streets of their neighborhoods, on their arterials.
Is there kind of a start date or ending date when that transfer of funds is going to occur?
It's already started.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact numbers, but we have a little chart in this presentation, and suffice to say the line takes a pretty steep increase.
Yeah.
Yeah. $30 million over the next 10 years on about $100 million base. So a lot of money.
And $30 million a year, when you compare that we're spending around $10 million a year right now, to be able to infuse that much money into our streets is going to be, you know what? Tell you what, I've had complaints, not the rabbit trail too much, but I've had complaints about the orange cones on Harry, and I don't have any sympathy for the people because I got so many complaints about the potholes and the condition of it, right? We're investing money in your neighborhood. Go ahead, Richard. And then you have.
I got three things. One, don't ever compare us to Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City has private funding from rich oil people that invested a lot of money down into the river and stuff. So we'll never be Oklahoma City. I don't even want to be on the same page with them. Number two, I've always said from way back when, Wichita needs to be Wichita. We need to be a place where people want to come, enjoy what we got. We don't need to be at Des Moines. We don't need to be in Omaha. We can look at what they got. I don't have a problem with that. But just because they got it, don't mean we need it. We need to do what we need to do to make Wichita jump out. The problem Wichita has, I've said it all along, we don't have 1 million people. When you go out 100-mile radius of Wichita, you don't have 1 million people. So you're dealing with a lot smaller budget and a lot smaller income coming into the city. And my question for you guys, did you have any aesthetics to do with that thing they call the Interest Bank Arena? Because that thing looks like a boat from Kellogg.
The Intrust Bank Arena was gone through the design council for approval.
But that's county.
That's a county. It's a county project. It did not go through the design.
That thing,
Shoot, man, no, we had.
I look at 72 and it stood out as a piece of art.
Yeah.
I look at the stuff called the arena and I just shake my head every time I go to Kellogg.
I got a couple county commissioners' phone numbers you can ask about that. Daisy?
Park Century
Oh,
Two is no longer functional at all for what our metropolitan city needs. So
I
you have to
agree
have
with
to
that. I
weigh-
just think there should have been some design, some aesthetics.
Richard, I see. So, one thing I did want to mention real quick. Our capital improvement program, the city council changed our capital improvement program. Even though it's a 10-year planning document, we made it very flexible to be changed every year because we don't have a crystal ball to see what the community's needs are going to be, right? And so that's I'm not trying to be contrary to Cindy, but that's why I have a little bit of an issue with the community improvement planning document.
Community investment plan.
Thank you, community investment plan.
CIP.
Well, I didn't want to say CIP because we have another CIP, but the community improvement plan, because they were trying to look in their crystal ball to see what the city of Wichita was going to be in the next 10 plus years. And our city is changing so rapidly that it's very difficult to take that planning document. That's why I say any planning document that we have, whether it's the downtown master plan, whether it's the South Central master plan, whether it's going to be the Clap master plan, that all has to be flexible to meet the needs of the community in the future. And so I want to make sure that when we are talking about this 1.5, 2%, that we're flexible with it. You know, maybe make that the minimum. You know, let's make sure that we don't go under that because we want to make sure that we're caring for our community. But if we've got to go over a little bit, I want to be flexible to do that. So.
We're having a little aggravation at the airport about the master plan out there. And I think Ron Ryan, the chair of the advisory board, said it best. Master plans are cast in jello.
and honestly, they should be. You know, your budget, if any of you have a budget, your household budget, they are just a master plan for how you're going to spend your money. But you don't know that something is going to cost more than your savings account can handle, and so you have to adjust things around in that master plan. So
how many times we have people come in here on zoning issues or this, that, that's not consistent with, like, say, the South Central plan?
I always say a master plan's a guideline.
You're right.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes we go, well, that doesn't exactly violate, or maybe it does, it's not conforming, but it makes sense, you know? And sometimes you go, yeah, we'll go ahead and approve it. Sometimes you go, nope, that's way off base. You know?
Sure. We just have to kind of know what the intent of
Yeah.
that was.
1 second, Mr.
I already said he thought. You're next, Michael.
I like what Jay said about how dedicated percentage helps the council be more intentional in their planning. And I think that's always a good thing. And maybe with an increased percentage that over time, there will be an increase in the security and safety that people experience in Wichita as more and more people go out to enjoy things like the Keeper Plains and other communities. One of the things we learned in the CEA, which you came and presented at the Civic Engagement Academy, was when communities are searching for an identity, the communities are often, community members are often involved in that process, obviously, right? And, you know, to Marco's point about involving the local community in certain types of projects, right? I mean, the Keeper of the Plains is obviously not something that maybe the whole community would get in on because it's a regional, ethnic expression of the Keeper of the Plains. But there are projects maybe that could be folded into a revitalization of neighborhoods. And to that end, it might be nice to have in your draft proposal a clarification about the involvement of the public in these projects. So there would be maybe an avenue and some guidance on how we could be involved in those sorts of things. And also, I think that, you know, a lot of people in Wichita are fans of the Big 12. So anything we can do to bring shame and misery on Austin.
Well, I'll tell you that the American Athletic Conference, which our Shockers are a part of, have plenty of presence in Texas as well. So I had to put that into. Ron, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. Michael, go ahead. Wrong again.
I was just gonna bring up under recommended action, it says to provide feedback and suggestions, which we seem to be done in the last 30 days. So is there anything else we need to do? Is it supposed to be a motion on this, or are you coming back before you go to the council to let us know more?
So go ahead, Arlen.
I
If you,
believe that we're coming back for other than this. Sharon's taking some really good notes here.
Okay.
I want to know how you did 4 dabs on one night.
Why didn't it be smaller groups?
Must be.
we just,
Phil's by himself.
you know, the recommended action is just to provide feedback. So we don't have a motion on this, but you're like Sharon is writing everything down. They're going to compile it. They're going to talk about it, and when they present to the city council, they're going to take all of that into consideration, and the ordinance should reflect everybody's feedback. Go ahead, Ron.
Put me in line.
Okay. And
Figure out how to.
I know.
one more thing. Okay, we're back from our commercial break.
There are two neighborhoods, I think, that are historically very
It's okay.
in District 3 and have been historically underserved. And I'm talking about Plainview and Hilltop. There are critical communities in our district. And one of the things that I've seen is we'll see these master plans for the revitalization of Hilltop. And then very little. They work very well for getting government funds to Wichita because, ooh, what a wonderful thing to do. It's great for our nation. It's part of our history. But then Hilltop doesn't see anything out of that money. So I would love to have a special focus for these design imperatives to look at these underserved communities because art and identity can revitalize in a way that nothing else can. You know, there is a it's a beautiful thing that can happen to revitalize neighborhoods, and especially ones that are underserved, but very deserving.
A study in Chicago shows the more spending on art in the neighborhood, the more the crime begins to drop. You can see the correlation.
So just a great example of what we're doing, art and aesthetic wise, is that Plainview is getting one of the splash parks, and the design council was very involved in making that artistic and aesthetically pleasing and fun for the kids. And Plainview will see that within the next 2 years. So yeah, we will see that.
Because the whole South End at one time was known for mobile home courts,
The dirty
and
south.
storage shelters, and mobile home sales and car lots.
I tell you,
Still known for car lots.
And there's not a problem with that.
we've come a long way. Ron, go ahead, please.
Bit of information, I'm on the Wichita Sedgwick County Board for the Handicap. James is going to. The cement and the walkways are legal to the ADA schedules. They are completely at Meridian and Pawnee, they've already installed one, and they are completely within the ADA requirements.
Yes, they are. You're correct.
Okay, then.
Jim,
Go ahead.
I'd like to say that 35, 40 years ago, Wichita was dismal. And today it is lively and welcoming. And in my opinion, I know there's places and I know there's plenty to do, but a 2,000% improvement in the overall first impression of our city. Turning the corner downtown is now pleasant and surprising. For instance.
Yeah, and more.
And I love from the manhole covers, or whatever we're calling it now,
Person hole.
to the murals that the city is allowing volunteer artists. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Thank you very much.
So
that leads to my question.
Oh, go ahead. Well, I want to say real quick, Bruce, the reason this city has turned around is because there have been some citizens with some amazing vision, and you already touched on it. And we've had to get out of the way a little bit, but in downtown, the city did some projects. We invested a lot of dollars, public dollars into it, but the majority of dollars that have actually spent, we kind of primed the pump. The majority of the money being spent is private dollars that aren't public dollars, and it's really citizens, developers, artists, regular people that are making the city amazing. It's not government that's doing it, and we're just trying to be.
It's both.
Well, it is. No, we're being supportive. Yeah. We're trying to create an environment.
And I would tell Bruce, I showed up here in 1985 as a landscape architect right out of college. And my comment was, I was going to be here for 3 years. Wichita was shades of gray. I was going to move to a real city. And I have been so privileged to have had a great career and have had so many opportunities in this town. It's changed so much. It's been fantastic.
Yep. It's been a collaborative effort between everybody. It has. Guys, okay.
I'd like to be the
Last
voice
comment.
first, and then I have a question.
Last comment and question.
Okay. Air Museum, originally built as an airport, far older than Century 2.
Yeah.
Outlived its usefulness as an airport, and yet we consider it a gem worthy of preservation. Well, you can decide where I want to go from there.
I will make a comment that gem has millions of dollars of work that need to be
including air conditioning.
that need to still be done.
Okay.
On it.
But where I was going to go, I don't know if you're old enough to have seen the Art Gang shows on TV, and the particular font that they used on the signs on their clubhouse and this and that Rich Hall called alphabet. How do we tell that something that someone puts on the side of a building that doesn't advertise their business, and they use what is actually a poor form of alphabet, how do we determine that that's a sign that's illegal or art that we can't talk to them about? And, you know, there's various buildings in town where people slathered whatever they wanted on the sides of them, call them murals, call them graffiti, call them illegal signage. How and when and who makes that definition? The particular place I'm talking about, you know, it's not there anymore, but when you got off of 235 onto Central, going north, there was like an old service station there that had been turned into a used car lot or something, and they had went out there with a 4-inch brush and red and blue paint, and we support our law enforcement and fire in the worst case of alphabet you ever saw in this town. And I was told, well, you know, it's art and we can't touch them. No, it's not art, it's garbage. And I don't understand why somebody can't say, you know, it's totally inappropriate, it's an illegal sign, it's something that needs to be dealt with. Fortunately, that business is gone and the new one's upgraded. And the last thing is Hilltop and Plainview were supposed to be temporary, 20 years? And now suddenly, they're iconic.
Not suddenly. They've always been that kind.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Hilltop was 75 years old.
I understand, but it was supposed to be temporary, and then the rules changed.
No, that's because the government moved out and independent bought it.
Oh, the absentee landlords, I forgot about them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, I'm done.
so Phil,
James, can I make one?
yeah, please, Dave.
There was an organization that recently ranked the Kansas Aviation Museum as one of the top 10 aviation museums in the
Sure.
world. So that's how, that is how Wichita is known internationally. As part of it is known for the Kansas Aviation Museum. So I just wanted to throw that out. That was
Absolutely correct. And we have a cute little keeper out in front of the Dock Museum too.
So Phil, Sharon, Arlen, thank you for being here today. I don't know what you thought you were going to get, but as you can see, District 3 cares very much about aesthetic improvements in art.
I love the
So thank you very much. And if we have any questions or any feedback that we have gotten from our Facebook Live audience, we'll make sure we pass those on as well. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. A lot going on in the city. We're moving on to board agenda. Anybody from our district advisory board have any? Go ahead, Bruce.
I just wanted to share with you a little feedback. A few days ago, my daughter and I went downtown with the intentions of trying out the new scooters.
Mm-hmm.
And we found a couple. They appeared to be charged. And we made the mistake of reading the rules for the scooter. Now, my daughter's 14 years old. Sometimes she obeys, sometimes she doesn't. I was surprised to learn that you are not supposed to ride them on the sidewalks. That you are actually supposed to ride them in the street.
By the way, same rules as a bicycle.
Right. Okay. And so I had to make a decision, even though I promised her we're going to do this. I said, there is no way I'm taking my fat carcass out on Wichita streets with that little bitty driving bicycle with an uncontrolled teenager beside me. And so that blew over. We did the water walk. And guess what we had to dodge through all the water? Electric scooters going about 15 miles an hour, dodging human beings. So, okay, this did not work well for the family communication.
Those are multi-use paths, though. Those are not just
So
sidewalks.
that's okay on water. It's not considered a sidewalk. Okay, so on the way home, we see nothing less than 6 or 8 scooters up and down the sidewalks in front of the businesses. No helmets, no glasses, no nothing.
Yep.
And so I found a website. I forwarded the rules to my daughter. She refused to read them. However, the idea of taking them on a public street, in my opinion, is insanity. Thank you very much.
Well, so
I would like to second that notion. I just think and I am not hearing good things
Me neither.
overall. I have heard a few people that are very for, love the scooters and they're for it, but the overall consensus I'm hearing is that the scooter idea is not going over well in Wichita. Yes, I have my own opinion and I agree with Bruce's assessment, but I think overall they are a danger. The people who use the scooters are endangering themselves when we go on the streets.
Yes.
Or when they are required to be on the streets.
Yes.
And pedestrians who have all right to use sidewalks are endangered by scooters if they're allowed on the sidewalks. So I think they're just overall a bad idea. I think we need to take an about face on this and go the other way.
So I would, but what I would also like to say is that I don't think we should separate scooters and bicycles out because we have a tremendous amount of people getting in accidents with bicycles, hitting people. They're not supposed to be on sidewalks yet. They're on sidewalks, everybody, and I never hear people complaining unless it's this guy.
I will point out, I did see a bicycle going the correct direction on the bike path in the last month.
But what's good for the goose has got to be good for the gander. And so if you don't want scooters, because we have a lot of private people that have their own scooters that commute with them. You'd be amazed. I saw somebody, I was shocked. I saw somebody down at 55th and Meridian on the sidewalk. It's not in Wichita at that point. On the sidewalk headed toward Hayesville on one. I was shocked.
One of the city
But
scooters?
no, their own. It was a private scooter.
We got kids in the neighborhood.
But so we've got to take this in perspective of our whole non-car system.
Multimodal.
So I just think it's not fair to not lump in bicycles as well, because those bicycles, a lot of them go much faster than the scooters. And so we need to make sure that not just the scooters, but everybody is following the rules. And I want to commend.
A scooter is virtually invisible. Yes.
Well, I will tell you that
People are used to bicycles.
compared to most bicycles, the scooter that don't have lights on them, the scooters have tail lights and headlights on them.
Right, that's true.
So I'm just saying, there's a lot of
Taillight
caveats
is
there.
about 4 inches off column.
That's an LED.
It's okay,
that's right.
E
Michael, go ahead.
I spent a lot of time.
But I appreciate you guys' comment.
Recently, and I will say one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're not on their phone when they're riding scooters.
No, it's very hard to do that. Unless you have Bluetooth, of course. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, you'll see.
I'm gonna,
Okay,
you guys
well-
ain't gonna believe this coming out of me. I'm okay with the scooters, as
I'm
long as they're on the street, and I can see them better than I can a bicycle.
You can.
I can see them just as good as I can a bicycle.
I'm shocked.
The thing that surprised me, because I used to have a tenant that had a scooter, a gas-powered one, and every time I'd see him, he had a broken arm, scratched up. I have not seen any, and I've seen a bunch of them scooters. I have not seen any of them fall, break their neck. The only thing, my biggest complaint with them is they're on the sidewalk or they're going the wrong way.
Thank you.
So
And that right in front of a police officer, never said a word. But I can't complain about that because the motorcycle cop rode the sidewalk to sit there to clock traffic.
So let me mention real quick, and then Daisy, I'll get to you next. The police have been stopping people and educating. By next month, they will be issuing citations, but they will do it if they're not on a higher priority call. We do have traffic enforcement officer that will do it though, and we shouldn't just single out the scooters.
No.
Bicyclists need to follow the rules too. So, Daisy.
What I would like to add is I wanted to try the scooters, I just haven't had any time. However, and this is one of the things where, because I bring this subject up to coworkers and friends, you know, like, hey, what do you guys feel about riding on the sidewalk? You guys have been out there, you guys see our drivers, there is no way that I'm going to risk my life. Seriously, that's not a joke.
On Douglas?
Well, I mean, they're all over the city, but you know, even when I'm on my bike, I'm gonna go on the sidewalk. You know, $90, it seems a little steep, but you know what? $90 or dying.
So
I got a challenge.
okay, so this is what I would encourage everybody. If you don't want to ride a bike or a scooter on the street and you don't want to get a ticket for the sidewalk, find a multi-use path, find a bike lane that are safer, and utilize that. There are other options other than sidewalks and streets. So I want to make sure.
How many people have actually been hit on a bicycle? On a car?
It happens all the time.
It does, but I mean, the number of bicycles out, and then you have to take in consideration, are they going the wrong way? 'Cause that's when I see the bicycle accidents, they're going the wrong way. And so you're looking this way, trying to find a white spot in traffic. Here's a bicycle out of nowhere.
I don't know, I'm just, I
That's
get
one
what
of
you're
those
saying, but if I had to choose, not that I've tried the scooter, I haven't even been on my bike lately, I'm gonna choose the sidewalk any day, because these are, I mean, sit on a corner and just watch how many people pass the stop line.
So, Dave, guys, I want to try to shorten this up just a little bit here.
Okay,
Dave, go
James,
ahead.
I've been overseas quite a bit. And what they did, in a lot of the older cities, Rome, this is a major mode of transportation for a lot of these, in Rome, in Tel Aviv. What they did in Tel Aviv is they ran a stripe down the sidewalk. And so the bicyclist and the scooter gets on one side of that stripe, and the pedestrian or the walker is on the other side of the stripe. And you learn when you're overseas, you're watching for them guys, because they're coming. And, but they've integrated it that way by just simply putting a stripe on the sidewalk, and it's only about that wide.
Yeah.
But they dedicate for the scooter guys and the bicyclists.
Well, they got vessels on the sidewalks in Rome.
So guys, anything else non-scooter related in our neighborhoods? And by the way, we can have another scooter discussion next month if you'd like. Go ahead.
They were over there today covering the soccer pole.
Yeah, I don't know.
The game.
Kickball.
Yeah,
Kickball.
So,
And I was
okay.
surprised they were doing that, 'cause I thought they were gonna utilize.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I'll get an update on CLAP, and so the thought was they would keep foot golf. I know by the end of this week they will have the disc golf
Oh, okay.
stuff installed.
Maybe that's why they're telling that.
Yeah, because they already have that equipment, so they're going to put that out there. I was out there today walking this morning at 8 o'clock. I went through a stroll through the park. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, I've never been able, people don't get the chance to do that. I've had two bicyclist groups that are going to have weekly rides out there. They are just excited to have that to be able to do. Lots of neighborhood people saying, I can't wait to go out there. So there's a pass system out there already. The cart pass, and it was really a wonderful walk this morning. I don't know how many of you went to the breakfast. Don't know how many of you were at the breakfast on Saturday, but there are some rumors out there, and even if you saw the city council meeting on Tuesday, that we have some secret deal to sell the park. No. I don't know how many times I have to say no. There's no secret deal to sell the park. As a matter of fact, the park board and the city council are getting ready to master plan that park with more public input and with the input of the citizen steering committee already. So instead of taking something away, what we're doing is we're giving something more back to the citizens of Southeast Wichita. As a matter of fact, more people will get to use this park than ever before because there's total access for everybody, no matter what your income or skill level. So I'm excited to see what the community is going to get in the future. Matter of fact, the city manager told me he can't wait to start, as soon as we have the master planning process done, he can't wait to start adding some stuff into the CIP and making improvements quickly. So, so we can prove to the public that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. There's some mistrust, and we want to build that trust up. Also, the $200,000 that is going to be repaid by the Starlight, which it's being repaid very well. They're doing very, very good. That I will also, if it's dedicated, if it's paid back by the time I leave office, that will also go to Platt Park as well. So I'm not making those long-term commitments because we're getting ready to sell it. We're making those long-term commitments because we want to give back to the community more than was shut down. So
Can I just buy that 7 acres for?
you may not. You may not.
By the way, the inflatable water park thing over here seems to be
It's doing
rather busy.
It's doing well now, and
It's amazing. We've been there.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to do than you think.
Yeah, there is. Catherine.
Two things. One, National Night Out parties are
Yeah.
on Tuesday.
They are.
One of those will be here at the Water Center.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Several throughout District 3. And then also, I wondered, would it be possible to have like a presentation about the East Bank
Sure.
river development? Because I went to the presentation at the boathouse and I didn't see people from my neighborhood,
Yeah.
even though it's our backyard. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there were hardly any presentations, like there's so few in such a short
Yeah.
timeline that I feel like we don't get to talk about it.
We absolutely can talk to that group about doing a presentation here. As a matter of fact, maybe even at a district breakfast, which is, right within the neighborhood. What people lack to remember here in this part of the city is that they think downtown is for those that live east and west or somewhere else. But downtown, the river corridor down there, up to the Lincoln Street Dam, is right in our backyard, and it's walkable from Pawnee North. And when we make investments in those areas, those are quality of life things that are so available for little to no cost to people in District 3. And so I'm glad you said that, because we need to have input. We need to have input. Michael?
I didn't know there were decorations on the Lincoln Street.
Oh, gosh.
yeah.
You need
Yeah,
to
the
go.
fish- the fish ladder.
Yeah.
It's a sweet little spot, especially if the water is up there.
All
Yeah,
right.
look, the fish ladder's got all the.
Any last comments?
Can you send out
yeah.
a list of national night outs? I imagine they've all been
Yeah. Newsletter.
compiled, maybe I'll post that next door or just an email to next door.
Okay, we'll make sure that happens. Anybody else? We have been here.
It'll be running, I'll put it in the newsletter.
They're not gonna
For
put any
sure.
more
I'll list.
signs out there on East Kellogg, are they? like
The
they did
next
down
one's
there
this Friday.
all over, Where everybody's trying to read what the
No,
thing
no,
says.
no.
I
No,
can't
no.
believe they did
Oh.
that.
Find out what paths are multi-use and what paths are not.
Okay, so we have a bicycle pedestrian master plan that is online.
Okay.
You can go to wichita.gov and you can see the path system. And it's multicolored, so you can kind of designate what's multi-use and what's not.
And then another question, somebody mentioned, you go to wichita.gov, you can find different things with just simple words now rather than having to have the whole.
Yeah, just type into the message, into the search bar, and it will help. Yeah. Yeah, because I know there's so much. There's so much on that website. It's hard to navigate. It really is.
That looks really nice.
Oh,
It does. It does.
You
Okay,
guys
guys,
out.
I would entertain a motion to
Adjourn on that note.
I hope everybody in Facebook land that's watching now, the whole one person, is okay with this. Okay.
Lonnie, hi.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good night.